Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for hanging out with us here on the Daily Racing Form YouTube. I'm Gino Buccola alongside Mike Beer with producer Bobby helping us out behind the scenes. It is a big week, biggest week of the year for us horse racing fans. Kentucky Derby, Kentucky Oaks week over at Churchill Downs. And if you want to get your wagers in, you want to head on over to FanDuel. Our friends at FanDuel have a great promotion. First bet, $500 no sweat back. First bet for all of those new customers. Head on over to FanDuel. Mike, we have a huge week of racing ahead. You want to get those Kentucky Derby packages right now because it's not only Kentucky Derby Day that's big, Kentucky Oaks Friday, and then all of the stakes races underneath on Saturday, on Friday, and even Thursday and Wednesday as we get to Wednesday for the William Walker, which is a $300,000 stakes race, Mike, sprinting 5.5 furlongs on the turf. What I thought was kind of fascinating about this particular race is you don't have a lot of horses in here with recent turf sprint form. In fact, only one horse in this race has been in a turf sprint this year, the number 3, Bridle a Butterfly. Nobody else has been in a turf sprint in the last 4 plus almost 5 months, which is very strange when you're looking at a turf sprint stakes. We have horses that are either making their first start of the year, horses that are transferring from synthetic or dirt over to the turf. So I thought it was kind of a fascinating race to handicap, but in that sense.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. It's a good thing to point out too. These are newly turned 3-year-olds, and for the most part, they're just getting started here. So we'll see, who's ready to fire off the layup. We'll see which horses can handle the surface switch here. Even with all that stuff going on, Gino, and there is a lot going on here, the horse to beat is Governor Sam. He's drawn out in post 11. He was a real good 2-year-old turf sprinter, and if he comes back an even better horse at 3, these horses better have him nailed on tight.
Let's take a look at the Timeform US pace projector. Governor Sam will see up forward close to the lead, and that's where he wants to be. That would be the knock on him in this race, is that he's drawn way to the outside, and there does seem like there is some other speed in here. Horses like Big Vince down on the inside. Altobelli is pretty quick. Horse like Normandy Coast probably doesn't want to be too far out of it. Makeit to Cheyenne also seems really, really fast. So he could have his work cut out for him out there off the bench with some other speed. But I completely agree with you. Based off his resume from last year, 3rd in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Sprint, where he was only beaten the length in that race, he's certainly the horse to beat. Let's meet the field, starting inside through the outside. We kick things off with the number 1, Out on Bail, and we have a replay, Mike, of the race that Out on Bail and Governor Sam were both in. That's the reason I picked this one out. It was the Indian Summer. Governor Sam's going to win this race and hold on, but you'll actually see Out on Bail really flying from the back of the pack. This is a horse who's the gray and was a little bit green because he was really building up some momentum. I thought this was a good performance. And earlier in the race, he got shuffled back a little bit, lost a couple lengths of positioning, and that may have cost him when you see he only loses by about a neck when it's all said and done. Thought that was a good effort. But for him and for Governor Sam, we're looking back at races from October and November for them when they ran really well. So we're getting up at, 7 months or so ago?
Yeah, exactly. They're both going to have to come back ready off the layoff. That's for sure. Because they're meeting they're drawing, the bookends of this field, and there are some talented horses in the middle too. So they'll have to come back ready. Your points are very well taken about that replay that we just watched there, because this horse did get shuffled back a little bit in the early stages, came running, just missed. If you wanted to argue to me that the shuffle maybe cost him a win there, I wouldn't argue too hard with you. I would just point out that was a wicked pace on the front end that Governor Sam was forced to go. And not only was he forced to go fast, he was forced to do it with pressure the entire way. So even if Out on Bail had gotten there in the Indian Summer, he would have been a very, very lucky winner of that race, because it just set up perfectly for him. That being said, every one of his turf sprints is good. And this horse has shown up every single time. He doesn't need to be that far back in the pack either. If this pace doesn't develop, he'll be closer to it. There are things to like here, Gino, but I don't think it's as close between him and Governor Sam as the Indian Summer makes it look.
You know what's funny? You bring up a really good point, Mike, because sometimes horses can have some trouble in a race that actually may help them with the way the race shapes up, right? Because they were going so fast early, it pushed Out on Bail back into a spot where he was able to get a really nice setup and not necessarily have to move early into a fast pace and get kind of carved up by that early pace. So that's a really good point there. The 2 Altobelli, very, very quick, but first time on the turf. This horse was actually a $15,000 claimer, just 2 starts back, then stepped up, and they're in good form, so they're going to take a swing right here. What do you think about Altobelli?
I mean, he just looks like he's in really tough here. And I understand that he's won a couple races in a row off the claim last time. He probably ran the best race of his life. And so these new connections, maybe want to take a little shot here in a tougher race. He just looks like he's in, way too tough to me. He's already faced a couple of these horses, in the past, and they just absolutely buried him.
The next two horses, Mike, I didn't get into the mix for like my top selections, but I could absolutely make cases for the both of these horses we're going to talk about. First up is the 3 Bridle, a Butterfly, who came off of a layoff from November to March and ran, I thought, a really solid second on the turf, going 5.5 at the fairgrounds. And as I was pointing out, this is the only horse in the field who has a recent turf sprint. And when you look at the overall body of work, you can just probably eliminate the race going longer on the turf. Look at the turf sprints. One of them was at Kentucky, going 6.5. That's not really relevant in this situation either. I think this horse fits pretty well. I'm curious. I don't think deserves to be 30-1, but probably half of that still would be fair value in this race.
I agree with you. I don't think he's a total outsider in here, but he doesn't have any figures. He's very lightly raced, and it's, there are no like real stakes races on his card here. So I can see him getting overlooked a little bit in this race. He should be a really good price. His debut, he really, to me, he's only sprinted twice on grass. First of all, I know 6.5 in Kentucky Downs, but to me, that's not really a turf sprint. And it's at Kentucky Downs too, which plenty of horses just really hate and don't perform over. His career debut, for whatever reason, they just dismissed this horse. He was the longest shot on the board in there, but if you go back and watch the replay, he didn't look like a long shot in that race. He got a clean trip from off the pace. He came running off the turn, and he went right by those horses, and I thought he was really impressive winning. He didn't sprint again until that most recent start in March, and just feel like he ran way better than it looks, Gino. The horse that won that race dominated on the lead there. They didn't go fast. That horse earned a 93 Beyer speed figure, and just got away from it. But this horse, again, sat last, came running through traffic in the stretch there, and was clearly second best in there. I think this horse is way better than he looks on paper.
The number 4, Normandy Coast, was actually a recent purchase at the Keeneland April of 2025 sale. They purchased this horse for $355,000, going to keep him with the same trainer, and they're going to bring him back real quickly and take a shot here in a turf stakes race after he won a stakes race that was taken off the turf at Keeneland. But he's worked on the grass recently, and I could actually see him getting a pretty decent trip if he's able to sit just behind the speeds. I just couldn't quite get there with him, but I don't have very many knocks on the form, and I think that's how he would run well. Can he get the trip right behind the speeds and get the jump on the deeper closers?
I can't see him getting a good trip in this race, and I don't know if I could convince myself that, first of all, I can't convince myself that he's going to be better on the grass than he is on dirt. I mean, the Omaha beaches, they're pretty versatile. I didn't really see any turf in this female family to suggest he's going to move up. And as much as I like some of his dirt races, Gino, and I like some of them, to me, he's more game than anything else. Like, he's not one of those horses who's going to blow you away when you watch him run. He's very game and determined. He gets the job done. Obviously, he gets the job done more often than not. I'm just not sure how good he is.
Number 5, coming in hot, we'll add the blinkers. He won 3 of 4 races between the end of 2024 to early 2025. And then he stepped up at Turfway and the John Battaglia Memorial in the Animal Kingdom. He was 4th behind a nice horse, Kale's Angel. He's actually favored in that race. But now we'll go back to the turf here. What do you think about coming in hot, moving from synthetic, trying the turf for the first time?
I could see, getting a little bit interested here as he tries turf for the first time, if only because to me, I know he won on dirt, but he wasn't very good on dirt, and he really moved up when they switched surfaces with him over to synthetic. Now, synthetic and turf aren't the same, but maybe this is just a horse who much prefers the alternative surfaces than he does the dirt, and if he can transfer that form over, maybe he can get a piece of this. He should be a good price.
And he could be sitting a nice trip in here. He won't be necessarily on the lead. He'll be off the pace. He can close here. And if a lot of these horses are flying early on, he could be mowing them down. One of those horses who might be flying early on, Mike, is Makeit Cheyenne. He cleared the field. It was super impressive. That was his first start in 7+ months. I have no idea really like how good the horses behind him were. I know one of them came back to win their next start. And lightly raced, but there's some ability here. I just don't know if this is the race in a big field with other speed, but I'm going to keep an eye on this horse for down the line because I think there are some good races with his name on it. What do you think about Makeit to Cheyenne?
I was interested in him here. It's funny that you mentioned that because I sort of share your concerns with this horse, like the speed, surrounding him in this race. Maybe it won't really work for him. I mean, he got the figure last time on the synthetic, and like you, I feel like he might not have beaten a very good field there, but he looked good winning. I preferred his turf race last summer anyway. Yeah. Monmouth. This horse, he didn't just break on top and wire that field. They made this horse run to make the lead there. There were other horses showing speed in there, and he had to outrun them to the lead. and he just cruised in that race. I mean, he won that race really easily. I know it didn't get a figure. I feel like the most disappointing thing about him, and I didn't see it coming, Gino. I handicapped this race before the morning line came out. I see him at 4-1 on the morning line, and I've kind of lost all interest in him.
Yeah.
I think he's pretty good.
Yeah, I agree. I actually wouldn't be shocked if what you're saying, like if he floats up. The only thing is you get the IRAD factor, who's always going to take money. But yeah, he did seem more like a 6-8 to 1 shot in this field, and that price would be obviously much more enticing there. What do we do with Jet Sweep Joe, another one who's coming out of the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Sprint? We haven't seen him since November, and feels like he's going to have to be showing up with a career best effort because he was behind Governor Sam a couple times and out on bail.
Yeah, he's faced Governor Sam 3 times, and he hasn't been able to really go with that horse. I mean, some of the finishes are close, and some of his races, but I just feel like they're not as close as they look, Gino. And obviously, the last 2, he was just no match for Governor Sam either time. The Saratoga race too is the one that bothers me. It bothers me for both him and out on bail, the Skidmore at Saratoga, because it scratched down to nothing. It was just a 4-horse field. And they just sort of went 1-2 on the track, going really slow. It was a super slow pace for a turf sprint. I just don't buy into that race at all. And I wouldn't bet Jet Sweep Joe off of anything else he's done.
Big Vince is a pace factor. He comes off a 3rd place finish on the Synthetic in the Animal Kingdom most recently. Do you think he can mix it up with some of these early on?
Yeah, I really didn't see it that way. He wasn't a horse I was looking for in here.
Yeah, not a fan either. I'm curious about the 9 Warheart a little bit, Mike, because I think if you toss the mile in a 16th race, and if you look at the other races sprinting on the turf, he fits really, really well. Synthetic last time out, I'm going to put a line right through, and I'm going to go back to what this horse was doing last year in 2024. For me, the key is he can sit off the pace a little bit. I think with the outside draw, Pratt will keep him close, but a little bit wide, which is fine for me, going 5.5 furlongs. I thought he was one of the more interesting horses, especially if he is up in that 10 to 1-ish range from a betting standpoint. What do you think about Warheart here, Mike?
I agree with everything that you said about him. And again, I looked at the race before the morning line, and for whatever reason, I don't know. I'm a terrible morning line maker anyway, but I just felt like this was a horse who would take some money. I didn't expect to see him 12 to 1. At that price, I have no argument with him. I really liked his Atlantic Beach when they shipped him here to New York to win that race. I mean, listen, he had a really good trip in that race, and really nobody ran behind him. So I'm not sure that it's as good as the 87 buyer makes it look. I just like the way that he himself looked winning that race. I don't like anything else about that race but him. I thought he was really strong that day.
And that's the 9 Warheart. We move to Perfect Force, the 10 who's going to be trying the turf for the first time. He comes in off of a 3rd place finish over in a stakes race at Oaklawn Park most recently. Is he a horse who you think has any pedigree to step up on the grass?
I didn't see any pedigree for him to be better on the turf. I mean, we've seen Lucas, run horses in crazy spots sometimes, and they run really, really well. Maybe Perfect Force is one of those, but I'm not betting him.
And rounding out the field is Governor Sam. He's a 3-time stakes winner. He was only beaten a length in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Sprint last year. So with his speed and his resume, he's certainly the horse they'll all have to beat. But I think you can poke some holes in him, Mike, or when you're playing races like this is the time to take a shot against a horse like this in their first start, when they're out wide in a field with other speed. So while I do respect him, and if he were to show up with a top tier effort, I think everybody else would be in pretty tough shape. I'm actually trying to beat him on the win end, but I think he's more of an underneath type in here. What did you think about Governor Sam?
Yeah, I mean, I just think he's the horse to beat in here. If he, he's going to have to be ready off the layoff, and the outside draw is no bargain, obviously. And listen, from a wagering perspective, I'm right there with you. I probably want to bet somebody else in this race and not him, but I'm not going to be surprised when he beats me. He was just really good. Every one of his races last year was a really, really strong performance. And that, we already talked about the Indian Summer, which is way better than it looks. Even his Breeders' Cup, Gino. I mean, he was drawn an outside post that day. He had to go really fast on the lead that day. And it took those 2 European closers. It took him forever to get by this horse in the stretch. He ran great that day.
Governor Sam rounds things out, and we round out this race with our selections here. Start us off, Mike. I think you went with the big price on top, right?
Yeah, I'm going to try the 3 in here, Bridle Butterfly. We talked about him already. There's a chance he just sort of gets lost in the shuffle here because he's not flashy on paper. But I think if you watch in particular his 2 sprints, I think he is kind of flashy. I mean, it's like he really ran in both of those races. I wanted to try him. There's supposed to be a fast pace for him to come after this time. I got the favorite second in here. I think he's the horse to beat.
Yeah, the horses that I couldn't quite get in the mix were both the 3 and the 4, but you and I set this race up pretty similarly, where we kind of have the 1, 6, and 11 as horses that we feel will run well, and we threw a price horse on top of those. For me, it's Warheart, who I'm hoping can sit just off the pace. So whoever you play, however you play them, don't forget that Wednesday is the race of the day for the William Walker, so you can get free past performances at DRF.com. And also, once you get those PPs, you want to head on over to FanDuel and make that wager. Don't forget, we're going to show you that thing twice this time because it's so important to let you know about that $500 no sweat back first bet for all the new players over at FanDuel. Check that out. Best of luck to everyone playing the races on Wednesday.